This week on Bravo Outsider. They've got the capacity to do that. They're a good Christian couple. They can do that for Luke.
I don't know what she is doing to the penises in her life. It doesn't sound fun.
Have you heard the word of our good Lord Jordan Peterson? Hello and welcome to the Bravo Outsider Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Midwinter. This is episode 99. I can't believe it. It's 99 already. Feels like we just started this yesterday. But next week, we will be doing our 100th episode special, which is probably not going to be that special, but we'll definitely do something.
It's going to be special as hell. What are you talking about? It's going to be an amazing blast from several pasts. It's going to be star-studded. You do not know what we are cooking. Neither do we, but you will be blown away when you see what the 100th episode spectacular has in store.
We'll have a very special guest, Frank Dremen. Really excited to have him.
Yes. What a legend.
Well, that voice that you're hearing is my co-host, Dylan Ferguson. Dylan,
hey.
We are very excited to be going back to Miami. Let's lead it off there. Do you want to give us a bit of a summary of what happened on this episode of Real Housewives of Miami?
Yeah, great to be back in Miami. Like you said, we've had a lot of fun with this show on the pod in the past, but we haven't really covered it in a while. So this episode 2 of the new season. So Larsa and Lisa both head to Milan for the Fashion Week show. Larsa's not walking, but is sending her son to walk, her son Preston, because he's the artistic one, to walk in the show. Setting up an awkward confrontation between her and Lisa. And the other big storyline really, I guess, is Alexis still struggling to deal with her separation, which might be a rebound back into a relationship. Not clear where she's heading with her partner, and having a big emotional dinner with all her pals as they try to encourage her to not go back to this dude.
Yeah, and it ends with Marysol sticking the knife in this relationship. I really love this scene. I think that this was the standout scene for me, where we finally got to watch Alexia go through the whole range of emotions and finally turning and being like, you know what, fuck this guy, fuck Todd. And yeah, it just blew me away. But what stood out to you? What was like the number one thing in terms of how this episode was presented?
I really want to just stay on that scene because I agree with you that was the standout moment of this show. It had textual and also metatextual elements, by which I mean like it's an amazing display of how their friend group works, but also the way that the show works in their lives. And it's the kind of scene that gives you, it's the kind of scene also that gives you a good idea of how the show can be a very positive force in their lives too. I think we have often talked on the pod about how this show can be a monstrous thing that overtakes the lives of the peoples in it and can really kind of poison them and warp their sense of reality and stuff. People are very aware that that's like a risk too, but that there is also some ways in which the show can be so positive for them. And I think this dinner is a really good example of that. Like Alexia's in a really tough situation here, where a tough emotional situation, not like a tough situation in terms of what to do, because everybody is telling her what to do, which is just, stay away from this dude, end it, make sure it's over for real, decapitate the corpse. But not only are they all like giving her support, but they talk about like how, he had a problem with the show and that was sort of a red flag. And Alexia says the show bothered him because he couldn't control it, which is interesting. Yeah. And then she follows it up by saying he didn't like the power that the show gave me. And I thought that was really the kind of the signature moment of showing why the show is like a potentially very positive force in her life and in all their lives, because it shows them in a way where they are not only kind of put on a pedestal and celebrates their life, celebrates their friendships, but also celebrates it in a way where that they are the center, that they are in control, that their narratives, the way that they see their lives are the framing device, are the things that are important, that they're not being subordinated to their partner's frames, to the men's and their lives' ways of seeing things. And the way that they invoke that idea of that the show is something that he doesn't like because he can't control it, and that this is a way that we have, that we can frame our lives, control our lives, both as this support group of friends, but also as people who are on TV, who get to have the narrative somewhat shown in our way. That was really interesting to me, and that made it like a pretty powerful moment.
Yeah, totally. I think Alexia even says he didn't like the power that it gave me, because like that is something that we have talked about, especially within the context of people like Ashley Darby, someone that we've seen use the power of the lens very effectively in order to confront Michael Darby and use that power. You can see how someone like Todd, who is like controlling a narc, as they refer to him, would crave the ability to control the narrative, and the fact that he doesn't have that control, it freaks him out, and he's like pulling the ripcord. And we even see him trying to like pull the strings from behind the scenes, which Marysol calls out, saying, "Oh, he's only being nice to Alexia right now so that she's not talking shit on camera." And this is his way of trying to manipulate her in a way that will control the narrative. And I think it was amazing to see that called out so clearly in this scene. And it was, it was awesome. A fantastic scene.
I also like Marysol saying to Alexia, "Be that asshole that you know how to be." That was really great. That is great. You know, she's being like, be the mean and harsh because you need to in this situation, and like, you know, claim that as a source of power instead of something that you should be like stigmatized for. Also, have you ever encountered anybody using the word narc to be narcissist before?
No, never.
No, we did. Yeah, I like that they put a little chyron on the screen. You know, it says like narc equals narcissist, just so that we understand what Marysol's talking about. Because I've only ever encountered the word narc as like shorthand for narcotics officer, to mean somebody who's like a snitch. I don't know if that's like a way, if other people do commonly use the word narc to be narcissist, or if that's just like Marysol getting her slang mixed up so that the editors thought that they had to clarify what she was trying to say in that moment.
Were there any like quotes that stood out to you from this episode?
Marysol's always on fire in her confessionals, right? We expect that from her. What was she talking about when she's talking about dicks? And she's like, "The extra meat's fun. You just pull it and snap it." I mean, if we're handing out dicks, referring to an uncircumcised penis, right? I don't know what she is doing to the penises in her life. It doesn't sound fun. I'm not sure. I'm not sure she has a firm grasp on penis physics either, based on that description, but it was a funny quote.
Yeah. Was there anything like in terms of like the strategy of this episode that stood out to you?
Strategy, I've got to hand some laurels to Larsa. I thought Larsa was on fire this episode. I really thought the way that she was like big manning Lisa was funny. I thought it was really funny to have Lisa be like, "I've been invited to Milan Fashion Week," which is huge and amazing honor. And Larsa's like, "Yeah, they wanted me to do it," but I was like, "Yeah, maybe why don't you take my son? My son can go."
Yeah. and totally.
The way, like the kind of like sort of cold, like, "Oh, I'm not trying to be rude" energy that she brings to Milan was I thought really well pulled off and really funny. Taking selfies with like a giant light shining on her as Elisa is walking on the catwalk is hilarious. Like that's just such a that's such a funny power move, to just like not just start taking selfies while she's walking, but like have this giant light shining on you, and then just be like, what? I didn't know. I don't know. That's just good shit. Like that's just a really funny play from Larsa. I thought she was really good in terms of like making Lisa look belittled this whole way through.
Totally, yeah. She turned the Fashion Week opportunity. She took that like big thing that Lisa was framing it as, and then reframed it as almost like a high school project, like an art project. And so that was amazing. Also, the scene in the car between Lisa and Larsa, where Lisa is trying to use her father's illness as like a way of like getting sympathy, and Larsa's able to just like pounce on this and be like, why aren't you there? And completely like parry that attack. I thought was really good.
Because she's got a good point, right? You know, it's like if you're so broken up about your dad maybe being dying any day now, why aren't you fucking at his bedside then, dude?
Yeah. But yeah, great performance from Larsa here. This was the through line for this episode, and I really like how it kind of came to a head with both Larsa and Lisa pleading their case before Judge Fabulous. Yeah. They're like, one is in each ear trying to like get him to be the judge as to, you know, who is right. And they both come away thinking that he's on their side. I just really love that.
Yeah. That was a great conclusion to the whole thing. Also, his performance is really funny too, just like really leaning in and just doing the classic, like kind of like, yeah, whatever you say is something that I'm going to to. Sure, yeah. I see your point totally like classic, like getting pigeonholed by two coworkers at a bar who are both telling you why like the other person is bad at their job or something, and being like, totally see your point, absolutely not listening to what you're saying.
Yeah, I also want to just like call out a highlight that I had from this episode, that the coverage of Milan Fashion Week, like all the coverage shots that they had that were showing like parties and everything was just like so top notch here. I think coming from a more minimalist show like The Valley or Summer House, which we've been covering for the past several weeks, coming to this maximalist display that is Real Housewives of Miami is so stimulating and like fantastic. I love how saturated the colors are throughout all of this. I love just the maximalism of Milan Fashion Week, the maximalism of Miami. And it's just, this show has such a fantastic identity that it's really a visual treat to watch.
Yeah, the way they lead into the gaudiness of the Miami setting is amazing. And also the editors sometimes just go ham on like the transitions. Like they do like the craziest like montages and transitions. When we switch from Miami to Milan, we get this like insane montage transition where they just like the editors just go psycho mode, throwing all this crazy shit on the screen for just like, you know, a 10-second transition. And I love that stuff. Miami probably has the most fun transitions of all of these shows, and that's saying something, because all of these shows have editors that have a lot of fun with the transitions.
So speaking of edits, we're 2 episodes into this season, and last season of Miami, we obviously got a very like sympathetic edit for Lisa. It feels like things are turning here, at least like tonally in terms of the story. She does not seem to be getting a very favorable edit in the first 2 episodes. At least that's my view. I'm curious if you think that this is something that's going to continue or what we should expect here.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I can separate what the edit is doing from what Larsa is doing. Like, again, I really do think that Larsa just put on a very good show of using the moments that she's sharing with Lisa to not look emotional, to not look like she's trying to hijack and ruin everything to like too much of an outrageous degree, but like actually hijacking and wrecking everything. I thought that Larsa just really used those moments really well to control what the actual footage is. So it's hard just for me to separate what Larsa is doing in the footage from what the editors were doing in choosing it. But it definitely feels like it feels less on Lisa's side. And if that's just maybe this passage, because that's what was happening was Larsa putting on a clinic of showing her up, and that will not necessarily be the vibe that the show's running with. I'm not sure. They did, like you mentioned, they have seemed to kind of try to center Lisa recently as kind of the more like stable central figure who's viewed sympathetically. So if that changes going forward, that will be very that'll be more like dynamic, I think, but we'll see. I'm not too sure if that's what they actually want to do.
Yeah, another story which I think is a really interesting emotional journey is Guerdy. We're seeing her post-cancer recovery story, and I think the scene that we got at the doctor's office where her and her husband, is it Russell? Is that his name?
I think so.
They're talking about whether or not they should do more like reconstructive surgery. And I think this little bit of like a push and pull that Guerdy is doing internally about it is really compelling. Like outwardly, she starts this appointment by making a little joke to Russell about doing a striptease and doing this like awkward dance, and she's trying to project some confidence here, but it's giving like a real just like human insecurity about like how she's feeling. And we watch as this progresses, and we have her asking Russell about what he thinks about whether or not she should do another surgery, and he's like, I think you're perfect the way that you are. And she says, well, I want to do it to make me feel good. And if I don't feel good, then you're going to suffer. And I really appreciate how open and honest she has been about her feelings here. It feels really raw and real. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard not to be emotional in the Guerdy scenes because she really does wear her emotions very close to the surface. You really do see everything that's going on. She's not like a cagey person at all. You really, really see her emotions. She doesn't really hide anything. It's all, physically and emotionally. It's all out on the screen. Even when she's at the party, she's wearing a dress where you see her whole coochie. But her emotions are like that too. It's like she's so like close to the surface, and it's so raw, and it is very heartrending kind of to see her going through this tough stuff. But it's appreciated that that's all on the screen because it's such an interesting and difficult emotional journey to go through with her, and it is really just fascinating to see how her mind works as she tries to cope with this. So I do love having that. This was a really good episode, I thought, because we have like that kind of raw emotion from Guerdy and also from Alexia too, switching back and forth between that and the kind of like cold surfacey gamesmanship of like Larsa and Lisa. So we've got those kind of those two things that are both that you need to have a good episode of Housewives, both some raw emotion and both some like steely gamesmanship, all the fun stuff.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about this is how this scene is positioned against a conversation that we have a little bit earlier in the episode between Alexia and Julia, where Julia is talking about how Guerdy makes things about herself and how like she's a fake friend. And I really like how we're posed this question about like who the real Guerdy is, whether she's like fake or not. And it seems like Julia is trying to line up this attack on Guerdy, or she's trying to position Guerdy on the outs of this group. And we've got the edit giving us a really compelling, honest story underneath it. We're getting like real honest glimpses of who Guerdy is, and it feels so raw and authentic that it really undermines what Julia is trying to do in terms of steering the narrative against her.
Yeah, it's also really funny to me to try to use like Martina Navratilovan's reaction at a party as like a plot point, because it's always funny when Martina Navratilova shows up for me, because she's just like so not a part of that world at all, and it's just like her facial expressions are just like classic any normie who's just like at a party that they don't really want to be to, but they're going there to support their spouse. And, and it's just really funny to me to like just use that as like a plot point when she's like, I don't care, I'm just here because my wife told me to come here, and then I'm going to go back to my real life. And it's just the contrast between her, like, you know, not wearing any makeup or anything, just being like, this is not going to be my social stop of the day, and everybody around her where the camera's rolling is like really funny to me.
Yeah. Do you have any other highlights that we haven't talked about yet?
The shot of Lisa's dad, where he's proudly holding a huge lobster towards the camera, was great. Maybe just because it felt like such like a classic Canadian dad snapshot, like that you would be able to pull out of an album to use as a montage of your dad. I just really like that image of him with a huge lobster. He was really happy. I'm happy for him. The lobster looked big.
Yeah, I think we covered most of my highlights here. Who are your stars from this episode?
There's a lot of stars in this episode. I'm going to have a hard time narrowing it down. I have to go with Larsa, number one. Really, really great gamesmanship. Just classic stuff, I thought. It was just so classic, you know, the way that she was just freezing out and big batting Lisa. I thought it was great. The whole Milan sequence was amazing for me. So yeah, got to give it to her, number one. Let's go number two. There's a lot of candidates here, man. It's I got to go with Guerdy, number two. Like you know, she's taking us on an emotional journey, and it's really something. It's kind of some special TV. So I can't ignore her on the stars for totally different reasons than Larsa. And I've got a logjam at number three, man. Like, Marysol is always somebody who's going to bring it. She's always going to have hilarious quotes, and she definitely delivered this episode too. I kind of want to give it to and Alexia too is amazing. But, you know, I think Alexia and Marysol are splitting the vote, so I'm going to give it to neither of them. Let's give it to Philippe Plein, the French fashion designer, who's the most French fashion designer, who I thought was hysterical, and he needs a podium place too.
Okay, interesting. Well, I feel like Larsa maybe bribed you $50 for that number one pick, but she did not get to me. I'm going to give my number one pick to Alexia. For me, that is the most interesting, like, major storyline that is taking shape so far, and I really think that this change of heart that she seems like she has had on Todd, and then like the big pivot at the end, that was just really compelling to me. I really want to see how this shakes out. It says so much about how this group operates and uses the camera. And also, I think like it really feels like the dynamic between Alexia and Marysol is just a real, like, a true friendship, not just one for the camera. Like the scene that we got between Marysol and Steve, where they're talking about Alexia's relationship, the emotions from Marysol, they feel very real. And then we get at the end when Marysol says to Alexia, you know, be the bitch that you know you can be, or whatever the quote is. You need a certain level of intimacy in order to like talk to your friends in that way and know that they're going to be receptive to that in a, like, when they're in a very like emotionally fragile state. So there's an authenticity to this. It's a really like high drama situation. I have to give Alexia the number one star for me.
It is crazy that Alexia went into that conversation with one line and came out of it on completely the other end. How often does that happen? You know, like where you have a dinner built around one person who has something to say, and then by the end of the dinner, they've completely changed their tune. Like she was starting off ready to defend going back to him, ready to be like, I still love him, we've got to give it another chance, and ended the dinner being like, you're right, I have to stay strong and stay away from him. How often does that happen? That's crazy.
Yeah, totally. So just I love what Alexia brings here. I think she's just like, she is a prototypical housewife. Like I think she is like just so dramatic, and everything around her is so dramatic. She like thrives in the drama, and I just think that she's fantastic. So giving her the number one. Number two, I will give to Larsa. You made a really good point about the gamesmanship that we're seeing from her. A lot of that I didn't even pick up on during my watch of this, but you're bang on. I think that she has done a really effective job at undermining what Lisa was trying to frame as this big turnaround moment for her. Like, she talks about, Lisa Hochstein, the next big thing is like a quote that we get from her. And the way that Larsa is able to make this look like a school art project, I think is just amazing. So I think she's going to get number two. And like I said, Guerdy, I think, is giving us a lot of real raw emotional undertones here. So I'm loving what she's bringing to this season. I think it's adding a lot of depth here. So so far, I think we're off to a pretty good start in Miami. I am very excited about what this season could bring. Is there something that you're like really looking forward to on Miami this season?
Just more Marysol confessionals. That's always the spice that brings it to life. Before we move on, I also do want to point out, since we haven't mentioned it, how much I really liked the little scene with Marysol and Steve. I think, is that his name? Marysol's dude?
Yeah. Steve,
I thought they had a great moment of showing how weird intimacy looks, like an intimate setting looks to the camera compared to everything else. Marysol's talking like, I married my Boo Bear for real, and then starts like meowing and stuff, and then we get these shots where they're like kind of the couple's kind of far in the back at a table with like this big weird curved couch in the foreground, and they just seem like deeply ensconced in this strange domestic framing, which is so different from the way that they're filmed all sitting around the table when there's lots of close-ups and lots of people talking over each other and stuff. I love the contrast between the way that like very domestic moment is shot, the way that they're ensconced in this like comfortable but weird space kind of buried in the back, and the way that it's filmed when all the friends are together with lots of close-ups, lots of moving cameras and chaos and stuff. It just really shows that kind of the way that the different situations kind of influence them, the way that you get buried in this weird little world of domesticity versus the kind of stark daylight of being out with your friends when they're all telling you what they think about your life. I thought that was a fun little moment. Also, they have a crazy ass dog. They have the weirdest looking dog I've ever seen.
Yeah, totally. Well, before we move on to the Valley, which is the main event for this week for me, take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button on this video. Helps us out a ton. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about the Real Housewives of Miami. And yeah, let's dive into the Valley. Dylan, want to give us a summary of what happened here?
Don't need to say too much. This is the Jax is back episode. He is out of his cell. Nightmare Jax is on the loose, and he's out crashing a party at Jesse's place for the return of Zach's boyfriend Benji, or what? Who cares? That's just the excuse to have everybody there and to have Jax just thrown into the space like a bomb into a bunker.
Yeah, great choice on the topic for the party. Like, they really had to carefully pick something that they could construct that it wouldn't make sense for Jax to automatically get an invite for this party. So really great, leaving the choice up to him as to whether or not to crash it, because obviously he's going to crash it. Perfect setup for this, and really fantastic to see Nightmare Jax on the loose. What stood out to you in terms of the presentation on this one?
It's pretty classic The Valley. It's got I don't know what's really different from other episodes. Is there something that you really picked up on that really stood out? I'm throwing it back to you.
I think, for sure. I think the main thing that stood out to me was the scenes that we got surrounding Jax's move out. There was such a different treatment in terms of how the scene was treated when Jax was moving out. There was a carelessness to it, and just there's this there's an anger undertoning it, but just like he's treating this very flippantly, the whole process. And then immediately after, we don't have any scene in between. It just says 7 hours later, we get Brittany coming in and reacting to the move out, and it is treated completely differently. It is treated with like such emotional sincerity here. She takes it very like seriously. She's like welling up. She goes into the garage and is like fighting the tears. I think this contrast was really powerful and really helped sell the story that Brittany has been getting, that they're like we are presented with a monster this season. We're presented with Jax the monster, and I think that the editors and producers have a huge uphill battle in order to sell the idea that someone would be in love with this monster, and they're doing a fantastic job of selling that for me. The way that they are able to show how complex this situation is emotionally for Brittany. We've talked about that in past episodes, and we see her reacting with this. There's glee in them, like reflecting on Jax's like Frank Drebin like posts, and we've got the sadness about him moving out and the golf cart not being parked in the garage. There's just so much complexity in terms of how Brittany is involved emotionally with Jax. I think that the editors are doing a fantastic job of selling this idea of this girl that is in love with a monster. And really great presentation. The contrast between those two scenes that were directly like back to back, I thought was really impactful.
Yeah, great point.
Were there any quotes that stood out to you?
Let me reflect. I don't. You know what? I liked the way that Kristen reacted to Jax, and I thought she had some good quotes in there, because everybody or many characters get kind of their moment to react to Jax being there, and we get to see like how do they treat this person who is nominally a friend, but also the enemy in this situation, but also still a friend, and also still the star of the show, and they get like different kind of cracks that they can. And I really thought that Kristen was the one who kind of nailed it. The first thing she says is like, "You don't have to not make eye contact with me." Like right away sets the tone for Jax being like, "Oh, we're in this kind of wishy-washy situation," and right away she sets the tone with like, "No, we don't have to treat it that way. We can stare face to face as old friends who have been old friends for many, many years, and we could just like say it like it is." And she's very straight up. You could definitely be angry at Kristen for telling Jax like, despite whatever you think, I still love you, like you're still my friend, and believe it or not, I do love and care for you, is what she actually says. But she's very clear in what she's doing. She's very clear both in her support of Brittany and clearly saying to Jax that like, I can be against your actions and be here for Brittany, but I'm going to be your friend. And that's like the situation, like very clearly stated. And when Jax starts to try to go off and being like, "Oh, but Brittany was making fun of me by changing the name of the bar," or whatever, Kristen right away says, "Don't question her. It was funny." I just thought that she was the person who handled best the whole like awkward, how do you treat Jax once he's back in this party situation.
Yeah, I think that we're seeing Kristen play some really good defense here. Like it seemed like as soon as she had her moment with Jax, she was prepared for everything that he was going to throw at her. Like she knew that the Brits bar thing is going to be this piece of information that he's going to use. Like she knows that she would be using that piece of information. So she was like ready to like bat that away. And then she was also really quick to bat away him when he immediately is like, "Well, I hope that she's been spending a lot of time with Cruz since I'm gone." Like Kristen was just prepared for this head to head with him. And she came out of it like not just defending the position that she has entrenched herself in with Brittany, but also not really losing any of the relationship that she has with Jax. Like, I don't think that Jax is going to be coming at Kristen after this, or even feels like betrayed by Kristen in any way. I think she's done a really good job of managing that relationship and handling it like really transparently. So great stuff from Kristen here for sure.
Yeah. The other bit of reactions I really like to Jax returning is how both Tom Schwartz and Jesse, one after another, immediately go up to Brittany and be like, "Oh, do you need a hug? Are you okay? Everything good?" Like, just making sure everybody sees as soon as Jax arrives. Don't lump us right in with Jax right away. Like, let's make sure that everybody knows that we're still showing some support for Brittany as soon as Jax arrives before we go and start, being buddies with Jax again. We've got to make sure that we're playing both sides here, both being very spineless.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tom Schwartz, like, just so you know, we didn't come together, is just fantastic. And great also, episode from Tom Schwartz.
Again, he's turning in some amazing cameos as like a wishy-washy depressive loser, both in this show and in Summer House. And this was another great moment. Yeah, the bit at the end, man, where he's like, "Yeah, man, don't say we're roommates though. Like, just we're not like living together." And Jax is like, "Yeah, we're sharing this balcony. I could go over there anytime." And he's like, "There's a barrier. Look, cameraman. There's a barrier between the balconies where we're not actually living together." Oh man, is that how this is gonna look? Oh, God damn it. Also, he's just watering his plants from 2 stories up, which was really funny too.
Calling attention to the actual like physical barrier and making sure that the audience is clear that there's a separation between him and Jax, because Tom's story outside of what we saw on Vanderpump Rules, like his post Vanderpump Rules story has really felt like he's looking for some sort of show to latch onto and something to like latch onto so that he can continue living his reality TV life. And when that life preserver is thrown to him in the form of Jax Taylor, he's like, "Oh, maybe I'll just swim the rest of the way on my own here." Like, just really good. There was another scene that I really enjoyed. It was the first time that we saw Jax in like a group setting when we got the like Jax is out of rehab party. I thought that this was like fantastic in terms of like the character study of Jax Taylor and how he talks about how much he's grown and like everything that he has like learned from rehab, and that he doesn't have a drinking problem. He has an anger problem. And the way that he's able to reframe this and like is immediately on a sales call with everyone here about him not having a drinking problem, but having an anger problem. And that's like, it's fine if he has a drink now and then, as long as he doesn't get angry. I really like that.
I feel like they've been very intentionally unclear about what sort of facility he was in. And I don't know if that's because it is just kind of like some bullshit woo-woo Southern California clinic that's like not properly licensed and is just like, we cure whatever's wrong with you, or if it's because he's in drug rehab and they don't want to talk about his cocaine problem on camera. Like, is he in there for cocaine?
Or the facility doesn't want Jax Taylor associated with them. That's why they can't name it.
Yeah. But it's like they talk about him doing like therapy all day, but like, is it a mental health thing, or is it like something to stop him from drinking and doing drugs? Is it something in between? I feel like they're being willfully obtuse about that, which is part of the fun, and that's why it lets him like reframe it. Like you say, he keeps repeating that. He's like, my drug isn't alcohol, it's anger. Like, just to be clear, I'm not. It's not a substance abuse problem. It's a feelings abuse problem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like classic, like toxic, like Jax Taylor.
You just had that lined up.
Yeah. But seriously, it's like just classic Jax behavior, the way that he's able to like manipulate situations and delude himself enough that he thinks that he can delude the audience. I really like this. I also think that we saw a classic performance of him doing a little bit of reality TV judo in the way that he's able to point the lens at Danny and make him the subject of the dinner instead, and like basically brush off any sort of accountability that he would have to take by saying, "Oh yeah, so Danny, I hear that you've got a drinking problem now." And then Danny, we get like a confessional of him saying something similar to what Jax is saying. He's like, "I don't have a drinking problem. I've got a problem with my friends attacking me." Like, just, but really, really smart of Jax to say that, or to shift the focus of the night onto Danny, and he even calls it out in his own confessional that he's like happy to have someone else take the anger for a bit. Did you have any other highlights from this episode?
I thought Jason and Janet were both bringing it pretty good in the early going as kind of the appetizer to the Jax's Back main show. They were both being a little more forceful and unyielding than we've seen from them in the past, which is what I wanted to see from them. So that's good. I like that. Jason comes ready to play hardline with Danny this time. He's not going to just immediately fold and be like, "Oh, I feel so bad that I said something mean. Sorry, bro." This time, I don't know if Janet gave him some coaching beforehand or something, but this time he came ready to like show that he's got to be unyielding, that he's got to make sure everybody knows that he's not good with Danny, that they are not good. And Janet too was being pretty strong with Nia too. I thought Janet had a good showing. Similarly, she was also playing her part of that battle, that two-pronged wife on wife, husband on husband battle. She was handling herself well. I liked the what she does with her confrontation with Nia. I thought that's maybe the closest we've seen to having like kind of full power Janet on camera. I think we've always kind of had the sense of her being somebody who kind of wants to get messy, wants to get her hands sticky, but we've never really seen her kind of go full on camera. And this was kind of the closest we've seen to her like going beeline in with a confrontation, with an attack, ready to play ball. I thought she handled herself pretty well. When Nia says like, "Oh, he wasn't even drunk that night," Janet right away is out with like, "Oh, so he's not just a drunk asshole, he's an asshole." Okay. Ready to not rebut what Nia's saying, but to like yes and what Nia's saying, to roll with it, to agree with her and make in a way that makes Danny look even worse. I thought she came ready to play. She played well. My biggest nitpick was that I thought she abandoned the conversation too quickly. She was too quick to kind of declare victory and stand up and be like, "I'm done here. I'm going to walk away." I thought she should have stuck around and kept that going. Maybe next time she'll do that. But otherwise, I thought that was a strong showing from her.
Yeah, this is only season 2 of her like being a reality TV personality. So I can forgive her pulling the ripcord a bit early here because she had the upper hand. She was winning this one. I think I know that the fans really dislike Janet for whatever reason, but I think that history is going to look very well upon her as a reality TV personality. I think that she's messy. She knows how to navigate fights. She knows how to stir shit up. I think that I think she's great. She's one of my favorite people on this show. And this is a show that is loaded with great reality TV gold. So I think that this scene between her and Nia was fantastic. You're right. She was really owning this confrontation. And I think that the discussion that we got after it with Janet and Jason, kind of just talking, debriefing from the conflict, they're able to continue framing this for the audience where they are pointing out how absurd it is that Nia reacted like, "Oh, you think that Danny has done horrible things?" When it's he sexually assaulted someone. He was out there grabbing asses. That is a horrible thing to do. And I think that they did a good job just in those little moments of continuing to frame that argument. So yeah, I think this was a great performance from her.
Yeah, totally agree.
Who are your stars from this episode?
First star's got to be Frank Drebin.
Yeah.
He is a legend as always. Where do you think Jax got the name from? Because it does sound very similar to Frank Drebin, Leslie Nielsen's like Police Squad Naked Gun character. That's the first like association that came to mind.
Oh yeah.
How about you? Did you have any associations with that name? Or we need a Jaxologist to try to figure out what he's into.
So I watched this episode like fairly late after it was released, and I just like saw a little bit of conversation about Frank Drebin, and I didn't know what it was referring to. I thought it was talking about like Frank from season 1 of Vanderpump Rules. Wasn't that like Stassi's boyfriend? So that's who I thought it was referring to. But I don't think that this is any sort of like allusion to that. I really don't know where he got this. There's not a clear source of inspiration for me.
Yeah. Anyways, it's great. It's great to see his burner account so brutally exposed on camera that where like Brittany literally has like a DM from Jax where he forgot to change accounts as like hard proof, which is very satisfying. So Frank / Jax gets the first star. How could it not be? This is his episode, and this is his show. Even though Zach insists that it wasn't for the last 30 days, like she has a point there. By the way, since we haven't mentioned it, talking about people reacting to Jax coming back, I don't like Zach, and I agree that he's demonic, but I thought he handled himself very well with Jax.
Oh, you don't like Zach? I like him.
I find him sinister and annoying, but I thought this was a good scene for him.
I also find him sinister and annoying, and that's why I like him.
Yeah, fair enough. But I do like that little bit of just to keep talking about that remark. I do like that little bit of the meta acknowledgement where they really frame what the show's been doing, which is that everybody else has been trying to take over the show, which, you know, let's be honest, when the Valley was announced, the main draw was that this is going to be the Jax Taylor show. You know, Kristen's a big draw too, but I think like the big deal was going to be that, you know, Jax is coming back to reality TV. This is going to be his show. And that's been one of the themes that this season's been playing with is like, what is the show without Jax? Does it just exist in his shadow, or can they succeed in making it something post Jax? And so I like that little exchange. My show, it wasn't for the last 30 days, as like just kind of laying bare the meta stakes of who gets to frame the narrative.
It's interesting because I think that argument falls a little flat if you watch this season so far, because even though Jax has not been on camera really, it has still been his show. Like he is there. We've been talking about how he's like lurking in the corners and looking through these cameras, and like he is still casting a huge shadow on this show. It feels more than ever that it is his show to me, just because like even in his absence, his presence is felt. So like, you know, this is actually Jax's show because of how present he has felt, even if he has been unseen. It is still Jax's show.
Yeah, totally. And that's why he's the first star. Second star, I got to go with Janet for the reasons I just said. And another strong showing from her. More of that, please. Keep going. Third star would be easy to give it to Brittany, who had another emotional outing, but I've given her a lot of stars for the same reason in recent episodes. So to switch it up, I think my third star has got to go to, it could easily go to Schwartz too, because again, Schwartz, killer cameos. But I'm going to go with a smaller cameo, life coach Scott, who just shows up again at the party.
I'm glad you brought him up.
Just sneaks in there. You just get a little moment of him trying to recruit a new client. Just he's at that party for that reason, immediately just trying to like pigeonhole Jax at the table and be like, how's it going, man? Yeah, intense eye contact, intense eye contact, tenting his fingers, like, yeah, what do you want to talk about? Yeah, let's work through this. All right, here's my card, let's get a session going. Just like I'm just very nakedly trying to get another high priced client.
Have you heard the word of our good Lord Jordan Peterson? But yeah, this was an amazing moment just because
Beard
like
inspo for you, I think,
just,
too.
Yeah. He has just like such a toxic energy to him. And so to see this like this cocktail of like bad vibes kinda, like mingling together was really good. But this also has one of my favorite moments within this episode when we get Jax and Brittany in the same room, like very briefly. The way that the editors treated this moment was fantastic, because we can see Jax like talking to the life coach, and as Brittany walks in, his mic gets dropped way down, and then we hear Brittany as she enters the room, but she doesn't say anything when she enters the room, and we get almost like silence. It feels like time like stands still for this brief moment where they're like crossing paths. I really love the treatment of that scene. Real standout moment. So I'm glad you brought it back to that, because that was fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Give me your stars.
Number one has to be Jax for all the reasons that we have covered. I am going to give number two to Schwartz, because I think that he had a fantastic episode. The way that he is at this party kind of campaigning to be friendly with all these people. Like I said, we've seen Schwartz's story up to this point on all these shows that he has made appearances on, looking for a life preserver, and he's there and he's trying to like make his move, and that's when the life preserver Jax gets tossed in, and we see him like having to pivot and grasp with his new reality being tethered to Jax. I think that is really interesting to watch. I love that he continued the trend that he had on Vanderpump Rules last season of bringing people plants as like move-in gifts when he arrives at Jax's place with the white orchid, which he says is symbolic of new beginnings or some shit. The way that he like navigates like trying to create this physical barrier between their space is really interesting. And then how he has like got a bad dice roll and is there when Jax finds out that he is getting served divorce papers. Making the joke as Jax comes in with the papers, like, oh, you get served divorce papers or something. And Jax is like, oh, yeah, that's actually what this is. And Schwartz like, oh, sorry, man. I was fully joking. And then he's like, he has to play counsel to Jax. Like, the new reality of his situation with Jax is so interesting, because he has to walk Jax through what this divorce contract looks like, and being like, oh yeah, well this is basically a love letter. It says, wants to be amicable and cheap. So that's really good. The custody thing's a little bit rough though. and like,
he's like, here's something I know something about. So let me weigh in.
But yeah, the way that this like relationship has changed for Schwartz, it was one of the most compelling things about this episode. So I really loved Schwartz here. And then I think that Janet is a really good third star here. But I kind of want to put this back onto Danny and Nia sharing third star. I think that one thing that we saw that puts them over Janet for me is the scene that we got with Luke, where he comes in and they are providing the kind of foundation of the framing narrative for this trip to Hawaii that is being planned, because Luke realizes that he doesn't have an excuse for this to be his trip that Kristen will believe. So I just like that they're giving a little bit more here. They've got the capacity to do that. They're a good Christian couple. They can do that for Luke. We also got the reveal that Luke has exotic pets. I knew that he was a turtle guy, even
out.
if the front of my brain didn't realize that. I felt that in my heart, in the back of my brain. So
in your reptilian
totally
brain.
checks out. Yeah, exactly.
Something in your reptilian brain called out to be misted with water by him in a terrarium.
Yeah, or failing that by Kyle Chan in his absence.
I love that. He just keeps exotic curiosities. He's got a tarantula. He's got a gecko. He's got Kristen Doty. He's a wonderful guy.
I think that about does it for this episode. Dylan, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yep. Yeah, I occasionally write about movies on Substack under my name, Dylan Ferguson. That's that.
Okay, well, I'm Craig Midwinter. You can find me on our Instagram and TikTok every so often, posting clips from our show. Give us a follow there, and until next week, keep on white
for our 100th episode. Don't forget to check in on the 100th episode.
Yeah, totally.
We're gonna do something special. We're gonna maybe have a little stroll down memory lane and take a tour through Bravo Outsiders' storied history. So yeah, I think you ought to be there for it. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a ton of fun too. So check that out, and maybe we'll even drop that one a little bit early as a little bit of a gift if I get it cut together quick enough. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll see you next week.
Ciao.